American Family Insurance is doing some really innovative things with digital media, online video. They've partnered with NBC, U Interactive, with CBS Radio, and with a number of other companies to drive a new online video program called In Gale We Trust, and it's an American family agent and putting her in unique situations. Little vignettes have done 10 episodes, a very clever cross-media platform, and I think that represents a future where marketers are developing their own content, where they're distributing their own content across multiple platforms, digital, legacy media, mobile, as new media like Google TV and Roku and Boxy, DirecTV, EchoStar are all in the content distribution business. So I think marketers, what we saw today at this event was marketers talking more about associating themselves with content rather than with platforms. What we've always seen is that marketers have been content agnostic, focusing on singular platforms. So they buy network television, they buy radio, they buy newspaper, they have separate organizations to plan and buy each. And now what we're seeing is a complete reversal. For the next several decades, we'll see marketers becoming platform agnostic and focusing in on associating themselves with content.
One of the jokes is always like, you know, product companies becoming media companies,
right.
Everybody's getting into everybody else's historic business. So here's a company that's never done anything like this before. Do they talk about any of the, like, we've never done this before, and what issues?
Well, it's for American Family Insurance, it still represents less than 2% of their total budget being put into these innovative platforms, and about 15% of their budget being put into digital, which is pretty high. So the business is still built around the legacy media and the traditional ways of doing business. I think every marketer, every media company, every agency has to ask itself, what is that equation going to be in 5 years and in 10 years? Is it going to be 50% of their business going into legacy business models and 50% into what we call today non-traditional and what will become traditional? And I think the answer is it's going to be different for every single company. But most importantly, marketers are developing media assets. Consumer electronics companies like Intel and Motorola and Sony, Samsung are all becoming content distributors as opposed to electronics manufacturers. Agencies are becoming content producers, as we've seen WPP and Martin Sorrell say one of their most important initiatives for the next decade is getting into the content production, development, and distribution business. And media companies, rather than just being sellers of content they create, are becoming marketing platforms. And I think that's a major restructuring of the business that requires every organization to refocus how its human resources are being spent, how their capital is being spent and invested. And the whole industry is going through a major shift, and that shift is obvious, it's apparent, it's fairly easy to read the future at this point and see where it's going, and it's moving toward online video, toward mobile, toward cross-platform, and toward strong content brands like sports and news being the driving force. And what we see in sports, and have seen for decades in sports, we're going to see more and more of in entertainment.
If I'm a big company, I need to put a lot of dollars to work, and TV is a very efficient way to write a $3 million check for the Super Bowl and know that you're going to get a lot of eyeballs. And I think people always talk about, well, in the online world, if I want to get, you know, 1 million eyeballs or 5 or 50 or whatever the Super Bowl delivers, there were challenges around reaching those eyeballs.
Right,
is that
right.
changing? Like, if I'm a brand that's big?
Well, you still need foundation reach media in any plan. It depends on how targeted your audience is, how narrow, how focused you are in your. But if you're looking to reach a mass audience, you still need mass media. It's just getting more and more difficult within mass media to find true mass distribution. at the same time, synchronous distribution. But what's more important is that marketers are realizing when they get that mass distribution, they can then activate that audience, whether that audience is television, radio, or anywhere else. They can activate them. Even outdoor, you can activate through mobile these days, and that's becoming more and more opportune for marketers. So when you can activate, you're not doing a service to your company if you don't take those steps to activate. And you have to put a larger and larger budget toward the activation. That has to come from somewhere. It's not coming from the traditional advertising budgets. It's coming from the trade promotion budgets, the sales promotion budgets. There's a complete breakdown of the traditional silos between above and below the line budgets and within marketers, where the sales organizations that control the sales budget and the activation, and the marketing groups that control the ad budgets are coming together, and they're collaborating and they're working together, and that's a major shift. And that leads to agencies breaking down their barriers between the traditional media agencies and the digital media agencies, the creative agencies. We saw that today with the David Lubars talking about working closely between the BBDO creative department and the media groups within his company. So we're seeing that, and we're seeing that at media companies, where they're putting people in place who are marketing people and not just sales negotiators. We've just released major new economic forecasts for the next decade, and we see that there's incredible growth in social media, going from 1.2 billion in 2010, and that doesn't include the display ads in Facebook. It's real social media where you're engaging your audience and involving them and have an interactive experience with them. 1.2 billion to almost 50 billion in 2020. We're seeing mobile going from less than $1 billion to about 17 or 18 billion. We're seeing interactive television growing exponentially. We're seeing experiential media and event marketing growing significantly. Seeing a whole new category called point of influence marketing, which is advertising, whether it's in a doctor's office or at a store, where you're right at the point of making a purchase or making a purchase decision, and there's advertising and marketing messages there that influence you. So that's a complete new category that we're seeing, and it's one of the fastest growing areas of media also.
So if these areas are all growing, that must imply that other areas are...
The area that's really, well, newspapers and the traditional media are shrinking. I see growth in broadcast network television. I see significant growth in cable network television for the next decade. Magazines, stability. I don't see significant growth. Newspapers declining. But where the real money's coming from are the direct marketing budgets and the trade promotion, the money that have been used for slotting allowances and retail shelf space at stores, and part of the negotiation process to get retail shelf space. That's been 25% of the marketers' budgets. Those will shrink to about, actually they were once in 2000, trade promotion represented 31% of the marketers' budget. By 2020 it'll represent about 20% of the marketers' budget. That's a huge amount of money that can be redistributed toward communicating with the consumer and influencing the consumer, and the retail relationship with manufacturers and vice versa is changing in ways that allow that to happen.
Was there anything you heard here today that particularly either resonated with you or, more interestingly, that you strongly disagreed with?
There wasn't anything I disagreed with. I think the interesting thing now is you have companies that have been traditional adversaries. You have the media buyer and the media seller, and they kind of go head to head against each other. You have the client that their job is to get procurement agents involved and drive the lowest prices. What we're seeing, and we saw today, and we're seeing across all these conferences and events and meetings, is more of a collaborative presence. I think we're seeing a major change in the ad community toward collaboration and partnership and finding ways to work together toward a common goal and end, which is to be successful in selling product for the clients. And I think, frankly, we're going to see that in society and politics and culture, where we're going to be moving away from an adversarial kind of polarization and toward finding common ground. And I think we're seeing that in the ad community. We're going to see that soon in politics. And I think our industry is taking a lead in what's happening in society.